places in the middle of their bodies, and a few native huts. Now this is all pretty fantastical, but it does support a theory that people went to Australia and saw that there were most unusual animals there. It's one of the things that struck visitors to Australia was the very unusual fauna we have in this country. When people are relying on a description written by rather ignorant men, as undoubtedly these first sailors were, you can see how a written description of a kangaroo might end up looking like this creature. So that is the prime piece of evidence of a Portuguese visit, this map drawn in Arques in northern France in 1550. If the Portuguese did sail down eastern Australia, they would have wanted to keep it secret because they were trespassing in the Spanish sphere. Remember the line of the Treaty of Tordesillas? So that's why they would have kept it secret. They didn't find anything of commercial value there, and the Portuguese maritime archives were destroyed in the earthquake and tsunami of the 1st of November 1755. And there's a picture of that. This is recognisably Lisbon. These buildings are still here around the main square where the tram terminus is in the centre of Lisbon. And there it is being inundated by the tsunami, which was so devastating. It was the greatest natural catastrophe in Europe in the 18th century. Voltaire wrote a play about it. Candide, turned into an opera by Leonard Bernstein. Dr. Pangloss, the man who thinks that everything turns out okay, ends up getting killed in Lisbon. The eternal optimist dies in a tsunami. You have to be pretty unlucky to die in a tsunami, particularly if you're German. So that's what happened to Dr. Pangloss. So it was a famous disaster. So we don't know if the Portuguese ever came to Australia or not, but there seems to be pretty good evidence that they did. But the interesting thing is nothing came of it. No, we can't say this of the Dutch. So now I want to look at the VOC and Australia. This is the Verenigde Oost-Indische Compagnie, the Dutch East Indies Company. It was established to make money. Let me show you evidence of that. The Dutch East Indies Company was the world's first joint stock company. The Dutch invented the stock exchange and the concept of the share, right, that could be traded. You could buy a share in a company, so a company had a perpetual life that was beyond the life of the individual proprietors, and these could be traded. And as the value of the company went up, so the value of the shares went up. We're familiar with that concept, aren't we? Although rather more the other way at the moment. As the value of the company goes down, so does the value of your superannuation. You're too young to have superannuation. Reflecting the obsessions of my age. I apologise for that. And there we are, found on the net. Isn't the internet wonderful? That's the world's oldest share.com. And that's a 1606 share. It's dated the 25th of September 1606. And there it is. It's a share in the Camera der Oost-Indische Compagnie tot Amsterdam, a share in the Amsterdam chamber of the East Indies Company. And there it is with various notations on it. So there we are, found online the world's oldest share. I thought you'd like to see that. So clearly this is a company established for the simple purpose of making money. Now the Dutch were Protestants, so they didn't care less what the Pope said. My favourite Protestant description of the Pope from the period is that of the German reformer Martin Luther, who described the Pope as the whore of Babylon, which wasn't very polite, but it gives you some idea of how little the newly separated Protestants of Europe cared for the authority of the papacy. So in other words, they didn't care about the Treaty of Tordesillas, they didn't care about trespassing on the Spanish and Portuguese. So the Dutch, from the 1590s on, start moving into Indonesia. then as now a valuable source of spices. At that time, the commodities that were driving European exploration and trade in Asia were spices. Now, you may not think that cinnamon and pepper and nutmeg and cloves are very important parts of your budget, and probably they're not. But in the 15th and 16th century, these were important parts of people's budget. Right? So they were comparable to the petroleum budget or something. So these were commodities worth controlling. There was a lot of money to be made out of them. And Indonesia was the world's best source of them. So the Dutch conquered various focal points in Indonesia, some from the Portuguese, some from local rulers. One they conquered from the Portuguese was Ambon in eastern Indonesia. In western Indonesia, central Indonesia, Batavia, as they called it, modern Jakarta. Batavia is the old Latin name for the Netherlands. So these were conquered in the second decade of the 17th century, 1610 to 1620. And these became their depots or entrepôts, to use a good French word. Entrepôts is a trading port for their control of the spice trade, because spices were a real fetish in Europe. You've got to understand, a fetish is something that people pay more for than it's really worth. Right? So spices were something of a fetish. And without understanding that irrational aspect to the spice trade, you can't really understand why it was so lucrative. Now, the Dutch wanted to make money, and they wanted to do it in a rational way. So very early orders, the company's established in 1602, these are the orders from the Gentlemen's 17, as they were called, the directors of the East Indies Company in Amsterdam. This was their directions, actually, to Jan Pieterszoon Koen, who has a very important role in Indonesian history, but we're not talking about that here. They said, there must be more charting, mapping and exploring of the lands further east of the Spice Islands, and a renewed search for a passage through to the Pacific Ocean. That's 1605. They're the orders. They didn't really know what was there. And I'm going to show you some maps. Let me get these in the right order. Yeah, here we go. Oh, before that, I'll show you a VOC flag. There it is. You can see the initials VOC. It's a bit pixelated, I'm afraid, because I took it from a rather small resolution scan. But that's VOC, right? Like that. You saw it on the coin last week, the coin that was found in the Northern Territory. So they didn't really know what the shape of the world was at that time. I'll go back to this map, the first map I showed you. And you can see here, they've got the Americas more or less right, although they make the Colorado River far more important than the Mississippi. They've got Africa more or less right. The Nile goes down a lot further. They've got India right. Southeast Asia is getting a bit vague. East Asia is horrible. And they're aware that there's something where Australia is, but they don't know what. So they start guessing. There's one missing. Somebody's nicked one. This is one that shows the Pacific Ocean. And you can see here's North America. That's Lower California. So there's Mexico, Nueva Hispania, New Spain. Right, there's Peru. Here's New Guinea. And they've got the east coast of Australia going off all the way, and they connect it with Tierra del Fuego. Right, that eastern lying land. That's from the Portuguese knowledge. And because they know that there's the Straits of Magellan here, off the tip of South America, because Magellan flew through them and sailed through them and called the land of the south Tierra del Fuego, the land of fire. So they've connected it there. Totally speculative. And the final one, that one depicts much the same sort of thing. yeah, there it is. New Guinea, and there's Terra Australis. And here it's connected, it's made really vast. Right there's the Gulf of Carpentaria, and they've got it going all around the world, and it's really like Antarctica. There's another really good one I want to show you, which somebody has nicked, but I'll be able to find it. Just